The Travel Transformation Podcast is proud to be partnered with Give the Goodness Global, an amazing global outreach project helping families in need all over Southeast Asia and beyond. Please check them out at Instagram.com/Give the Goodness Global today. And now on to the podcast episode.
Welcome to the Travel Transformation Podcast, where we talk all things travel and all things transformation, exploring the life-changing potential of solo travel, intentional travel, and location-independent working. Whether you're an aspiring digital nomad or simply wish to boost your confidence through epic travel experiences, I'm here to motivate and inspire you to go after all your wildest dreams. I'm Jessica Grace Coleman, author, certified travel coach, founder of the Travel Transformation Company, and your host for the Travel Transformation Podcast. Travel changed my life. Now let's change yours. You ready? Let's go. Welcome to the Travel Transformation Podcast, where we talk all things travel and all things transformation. My name is Jessica Grace Coleman and I'm your host. And today I'm talking to disability writer, photographer and paraeducator Michelle Steiner. Now, before we get on to today's interview, I have two quick announcements to make. The first one is that I have a new Facebook group, which I'd love for you all to join. It's called the Travel Transformation Lounge, Your Journey to a More Adventurous Life. And you can either search for that, or you can head to www.facebook.com/groups/the Travel Transformation Lounge. I'll put the link in the show notes as well, so you can easily click on that. In the group, I'll be talking all things travel and all things transformation, as well as going live, doing mini challenges, giving discounts for my online courses and programs, and all kinds of fun stuff. Again, that's the Travel Transformation Lounge, Your Journey to a More Adventurous Life at facebook.com/groups/the Travel Transformation Lounge. The second announcement is that I've made another free PDF that is available now. It's called 10 Ways You Can Transform Your Life Through Travel, Even When You Can't Travel. And as I said, you can get it for free right now by going to traveltransformationcoach.com/transformation guide. I really enjoy putting this guide together, as anyone can use it to start transforming themselves and their lives through the principles of travel, even if you can't travel right now. So again, that's traveltransformationcoach.com/transformation guide, and I'll put that link in the show notes as well. Okay, so on to today's guest. Michelle lives with an invisible disability, having been diagnosed as a young child in kindergarten. She has dyscalculia, a math learning disability, limited hand dexterity and visual perception issues. Her disability has made things such as maths and driving impossible. Michelle has had articles published on the Mighty, Nonverbal Learning Project, Dyscalculia blog, The Reluctant Spoonie, Kalopina Collective, Imagine the World as One magazine, and Word Gathering. Her photographs were featured in Word Gathering and Independent and Work Ready. Michelle works as a paraeducator in a school with students and disabilities, and she lives in Pennsylvania with her husband and 2 cats. In this episode, we discuss travelling with hidden disabilities, Michelle's own disabilities and how they affect her life and her trips, the first solo trip she went on, and how she's taken her passion for advocacy and used it in her role as a paraeducator. We cover some great tips for travelling with hidden disabilities in this episode, so let's get straight to the interview. Hi Michelle, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Jessica. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for coming on very early, as we were just talking about before I pressed record. It's 6 a.m. your time, so thank you very much. So to start with, please can you give me and our listeners a bit of background info about you, where you're from, and a little bit about your story so far?
Sure, I'll be happy to do that. Well, my name is Michelle Steiner, and I'm from the United States. And I am a disability writer, speaker, photographer. I have my own website called Michelle's Mission. And I'm also a paraeducator in a school where I work with students that have disabilities and who don't have disabilities. And I also have a learning disability myself.
So I'm going to ask you about your website in a bit, but could you tell me more about your disability then? What is it? How does it affect your daily life? And then how does it affect you when you go further afield, like when you're traveling?
Yes, I have dyscalculia, which is a math disability where I have a really hard time with numbers. But that goes beyond just not being able to perform a math problem. It can affect my sense of direction. I don't understand concepts such as east and west and south. It can also affect how I process information. So if I'm traveling, it can be really difficult. If I'm lost in an unfamiliar airport, where do I go? And that's really hard. And then people give you directions and they look at you like, oh, why don't you understand that? And another thing is I have limited hand dexterity. So that can make things really hard with using my fine motor skills. And it can be hard to unbuckle a seatbelt or buckle that if you get a really hard one that just you can't have your fingers move. And I also have visual perception issues. So I'm not able to drive. So when I get somewhere, I need to have somebody drop me off at the airport or pick me up or use other forms of transportation.
Wow. Okay. So do you use any sort of tools, like any apps to help you with, like, say with the direction thing? How do you work around that? How do you deal with that when you're out and about?
Sure. Well, the first thing that we did over the summer was I had my first trip by myself to a Down syndrome conference. I wasn't able to do, my husband was working, and I had a flight ambassador with my first flight out with the airport going there. She helped me with where I'm going. She walked me to the gate. She walked me through security. That was helpful. And she also gave me a badge called the hidden sunflower. And what that is to indicate is somebody has a hidden disability that you're not able to see.
Okay, so you mentioned flight ambassador there. Is that something you can ask for, or how do you go about getting that?
Every airport's different. The original airport I flew out to Florida with, they had a program like that, and they're volunteers. And what I did was I emailed the airport as soon as I knew I was going to be needing one. And they said, okay, we'll give you the information, who your flight ambassador was and her phone number, so you can contact on that day and where you're to meet her at. And that was really helpful. Not every airport has that. When I flew into Orlando International, they didn't have flight ambassadors, at least from what I could see on the website. They might have had that if I would have emailed them and asked. And that was really helpful. And both airports were also part of the Hidden Sunflower program. And not every airport does that. It's getting a little more popular. In fact, it was a new program, even for the one that I flew out with.
That's such a great idea. And like you say, if you do the research, maybe just email them and ask anyway, because you never know, they might have just started rolling out or something like that. That's a good tip. So what else do you have to do sort of ahead of time and while traveling to sort of prepare for a trip? Make sure you can go out there, explore new places as easily as possible. What kind of things do you have to think about?
Well, a lot of it came with when I work with my students. Well, if we were preparing them, I work visually impaired students. So if we were going out in the community, we would do a lot of looking at maps. I mean, I'm not a great map reader, but some of them, they would break down the steps of things that they'd have to do as well. They would break down, okay, this is what you have to do when you're going to approach this. So right before I took that trip this summer, my husband and I watched a lot of YouTube videos on different airports that I would be traveling in. So I had a feel of where we would be going, and I could look at the picture of them and say, okay, that's where that is. And also we looked over procedures that you would have to go through TSA. That helps to have that knowledge and that background, and also things that we didn't have to do before. My husband and I, the last time we flew out together, we didn't go through baggage claim. We just had our carry-on bag with us. And I was leaving for a few days, so I needed to have a carry-on bag along with having a checked-in bag. And we went through how you go through that procedure. And we just had one snag whenever I got to the airport where my destination was. And it was hard for me because I never did this before. And I remember I asked somebody, where were the bags at that are coming in from the location? And I had somebody who was working for the airline. She just looked at me and she just pointed to where the bags were. But the woman that she was assisting that was in a wheelchair said, oh, it's okay. She goes, you're in the right place. I know this is hard. And most people were very understanding, very helpful, and just kind, but it was looking just at a lot of what I was going to expect before I got there.
I mean, even if you don't have a hidden disability, airports are just so confusing. Like, I find them confusing. I've done it before where I have it's been like a little plane and I just walked past the baggage claim completely, like went past it. It was so tiny, we didn't see it. And we ended up waiting for hours to try and locate our suitcase. So it's easily done anyway. So, generally you can find people that you can ask and that can, generally people are quite helpful. hopefully, in airports and things like that. So yeah, that's good. So I wanted to ask you about your solo trip. How did you feel before you went on it? Were you really anxious? Was it something that you really wanted to do to prove you could do it?
A mixture of both. I had that mixture of anxiety with going on, and I also had that excitement that this is going to be something that is going to be new for me and something I needed to do for myself. I have blogged about, or written articles on how we travel with having a disability. And I don't drive, so I never was the person that went on a long distance trip by myself in a car. I never really traveled outside with being on an airplane by myself. I'm not even an experienced flyer. This was only my second time that I did this. So there was a lot of nervousness, and there was really a lot of nervousness for my family too, because they knew how hard it is for me to be able to find where I'm going, even when I'm in a place that's relatively familiar. And so I was funny. My mom said, I'm really nervous about you going out. She goes, even when you're 100, I'm going to worry about you and I'm not going to be around. So that was, and I can remember my dad, he goes, don't talk to strangers. And I'm like, okay, Dad. I had to laugh about that. And my husband, he was a little nervous about the whole thing too. I mean, that was hard for him. I think like he knew I could do it and I was going to be all right. He was like, I want all the information on the flight. I want to know where you're at and just making sure that you're safe and that you're getting what you need. But that was just that fear of unknown. But I knew that I was excited about doing it and it was a new opportunity. It was a new state that I never was at before. And it was just that chance to go in and experience it and maybe help somebody else that has a disability while they're traveling.
Yeah, definitely. If they can see that you can do it, then it inspires them to try too. So did that trip go smoothly? Did you have any sort of bumps, any hiccups, anything like that?
Since the start of the pandemic, many people have been reconsidering the ways in which they have fun. After a horribly isolating couple of years, we're now craving connection, community, and real deep conversation. We don't want to do the same old stuff every time we meet up with friends. We want something new, something different, something more. Enter the Flip the Script Party Packs. These digital party packs will help you flip the script on your usual parties and flip the script on your lives. Yes, this is self-development, but not as you know it. When you buy a Flip the Script party pack, you'll get taken to a super secret page on our online portal where you'll be guided through your very own Flip the Script party with videos, fun worksheets, and printables to help you throw the best Flip the Script party ever. There's a party pack for everyone and every situation. Mindset makeover, business bestie, life goals and legacy, birthday boost, hen do hootenanny, and team building takeover. All designed to help you have a great time in a fun, collaborative setting. They're also perfect for when you're meeting people on the road and you want to get to know your new travel buddies. Small talk's dead. It's time to get deep with a Flip the Script party. Just head to traveltransformationcoach.com/party to purchase, or get all 6 party packs free when you sign up to the Flip the Script Digital Nomad Academy at traveltransformationcoach.com/academy. And now let's get back to the Travel Transformation Podcast.
It was actually a very smooth trip. A couple things that may have happened that were just little hiccups. I can remember when I was flying out, I was with my flight ambassador and I had my hidden sunflower lanyard on. And when I went through TSA, they were like, can you take your lanyard off? And I was like, okay. Even the flight ambassador looked like, this is a little different. I mean, you're supposed to have it on. And I can remember on my way home, when I went through TSA, I asked them, do you want me to take this off or can I keep it on? And they said, yeah, you can keep it on. And then they just scanned it whenever I came out. And I was fine with that. But that was the first thing. Other than I was able to get on, the airline was wonderful that I flew with. They gave me extra time to get on the plane and I had pre-boarding even the next time. They were just very understanding. And there was another person that was on that trip and I didn't see this happening. Otherwise, I would have definitely given up my seat so they could sit together. There was a person that had a son that had Down syndrome that was on our flight going to the same conference, and she didn't know about pre-boarding and the hidden sunflower badge, and they didn't let her sit together. And nobody gave up their seat. So that's where having that knowledge helped. And then on the way there, I had to find my friend that was picking me up from the airport. And it took a little bit of instruction from her on where she was at. I did get lost at that point, but it was just, she walked me through, oh, this is where I'm at. And I was able to go back and find her. And then on the way home, just your typical things that people will have when they fly. The weather, it was storming, so we had a delay, and we had a crying baby on the plane, and just your typical things that you'll encounter. But it was great.
Great. And how did you feel after you'd sort of done the trip and come back? And did it make you want to try like more solo trips?
Oh, definitely. I now know that I can do it. I would absolutely prefer to have my husband with me just to have that, but I was so glad to see him. But I know that if I get a speaking engagement or I get another conference or someone else that might need my assistance, that I can get on a plane by myself. I can use the resources that are out there and I can do it.
That's amazing. It's just having the courage to try it once, isn't it? And then when you can show yourself that you're capable, you can do it, and that it's, quite fun, then it's amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
Go on and try new things and keep trying different things. That's amazing. So I know you talk a lot about disabilities, and in particular, as we've mentioned, hidden disabilities, and you've sort of explained what you have. But what is meant by the term hidden disabilities in general for people who don't know? What can it cover?
A hidden disability is one that you cannot see. It can cover what I have, learning disabilities. It can also cover autism. It can also cover things that maybe a lot of people wouldn't think about, mental health disorders, bipolar. It can also cover arthritis or chronic pain or chronic fatigue. There's a lot of different things that we just can't see. And a lot of those conditions are listed on the Hidden Sunflowers website, where they talk about a lot of them. And they give you that opportunity, if you have a hidden disability, to be able to list it on their website. And it's pretty extensive, the amount that they have.
Okay, yeah, I will find that link and put it in the show notes as well for anyone who's interested in looking at that. So we've talked about your solo trip, which I had questions about. You mentioned there that you help teach children with disabilities. What kind of ages are we talking about? What kind of disabilities? How did you get into it? I want to know all about it.
Sure. This year I'm working with sixth graders at our school, and they're about 11 and 12 that I'm working with. I am not able to help them with math. Most of the kids know that. In the beginning of the year, I kind of give my little spiel that I can help them with anything except for math. And slowly this crew is learning that as well. But I'm able to work with them on a lot of advocacy skills, and I'm really good with English and reading. Sometimes I might read a test to a student, but I think what I really enjoy doing is when I get to teach them advocacy. And those happen in just sometimes the most informal unexpected places. I can remember last week we had a student that was crying because he couldn't do a graph in science. And right before that happened, I was feeling a little bit discouraged because I couldn't really help them. And I look over and somebody said, oh, this kid is crying. And they said that, oh, yeah, he cries a lot. He has stomach aches that happen. And I just got down on eye level with them. And I said that I have a learning disability in math, and I know how hard it is. And whenever you're feeling really frustrated or you don't know what to do, I want you to let me know, and we'll get somebody over here that can help you. And the kid has been coming into class with that, raising his hand, asking questions, and he's not crying anymore. And I think that is one of the most things that just brings me a lot of joy, is being able to help another person be able to advocate for themselves. I just knew that whenever I started my job, I wanted to definitely have something that I could help other people that had disabilities. And I knew being a teacher wouldn't be the most wise course of action for me to go after, but I was able to find something a lot better for me. And a lot of people didn't even think I could do college or get my bachelor's degree because of the disability. And I was able to do that with having the right supports.
Oh, that's amazing. And it must be such a fulfilling job. Like you say, a lot of it is letting them know that they're not alone and they're not the only ones feeling this way. And the fact that he now, can ask for help and doesn't just, immediately start crying, like you've changed that kid's life. So that's so cool. Love it. So I know you mentioned there that there's such a huge range of hidden disabilities, but if there's someone listening to this who has one of them or several of them and would like to, say, go on a trip, but is feeling, anxious about it, doesn't know if they can do it, it's all very scary and overwhelming, whether it's solo or with someone else, what would you say to them to encourage them to try it?
The first thing I would encourage them to try is to know what their disability is when they go into it, and some of the difficulties that you'll have. And I also think it's looking out for some of the resources that can help with that, whether that's a flight ambassador or it's a hidden sunflower lanyard, or just sometimes seeing what services are available. I also know, like at the airport I flew out, and they have a sensory room for people, and they even have a cabin of an airplane that people can get on. Knowing what your disability is and knowing the resources that are out there to be able to have your trip be a success.
Research.
Yes, exactly.
Great. And you have a website and blog, which you mentioned before, Michelle's Mission. Can you tell me more about this? What is it? Who's it for? And what made you want to start it?
I have michellesmission.net. And what that is it is a blog that I have write about life with having a learning disability. And I'm able to explain what my different experiences are with that. And I also get the chance to put my photography on there as well. A lot of times not being able to drive, it gives me the chance to sit in the passenger seat, and I get to notice maybe things other people might miss. Now, my husband's getting better at this because I think I tell the story all the time. And now he's like, hey, did you see that when we're in the car? But I get that chance to be able to go on a walk and take photographs of some flowers. And people have said, you bring out details in a flower that I might miss. And I get that chance to put them on my blog. And I also have a little store where people can also purchase merchandise with my artwork. I have a disability forum where we have different questions, where we talk about disability things that people can connect with. And we have different themes. Over the summer, it was travel was my theme. And this time we're talking about back to school.
Nice. And I have had a look at your website, and I love your photos, like the flowers, like you said. They're just really, really great. So yeah, highly encourage everyone to go and check that out. You've also had some stories published in an anthology. Is that right? Can you tell me about that?
Sure. I went to a workshop where different people were writing. We had different writing prompts about different parts of our lives, and it was called Rediscovering Your Story. And there was different things that we wrote about. There was fun ones where you talked about your hair. There was other ones where we talked about what is the greatest lesson you learned. And a lot of the participants had mental health issues. Some of them had issues with sobriety, and they met drug abuse. And I was one of the only ones that had a learning disability. So I didn't struggle with those issues, but I did struggle with having a disability. So we wrote a lot of those stories, and they published it in a book that's available on Amazon.
Nice. And we'll put the link to that in the show notes as well. Now, I asked you where your favorite places are, and you said New York City, Niagara Falls, the West Side, and Chicago. And can you tell me why these places are so special to you?
New York City was my favorite because that was the first trip that I took as an adult with friends away from my family. And I always wanted to go. And I had that trip with my friends, and it was just a really magical time. Everybody just loved it. It was my first time seeing everything, and a lot of my friends already did that. I loved Niagara Falls. That was my favorite trip with my husband, one of my favorite trips with him. I've never been there before. And just being able to see that for the first time was just amazing. Like looking at the waterfalls and just experiencing that with him. And then Chicago was also another favorite of mine, because that was my first time on an airplane altogether. I never did that before. And I was also never to Chicago. So we got to experience a lot of different things together.
Nice. I've never been to Chicago, just the airport. And that's on my list of places I want to go. I love New York as well. I've been there a few times, but just for a few days at a time. And there's just obviously so much to do. Amazing. And I've been to Niagara Falls as well. And like you say, it's just so beautiful. And I cannot imagine the woman that went over it in a barrel, like in the 1900s or something. Like I can't even imagine that. It's so.
I know. No, thank you.
No, yeah, I think I'll pass on that one. I'll just look at the one.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have two last quick questions. First of all, where can people find and follow you online? And is there anything else you want to mention or any last message you want to get across before we go?
Sure. You can find me at my blog, michellesmission.net. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook. And I would just love to encourage everybody to travel, especially people that have disabilities, and to look for those resources, because life is too short to just not be able to do that.
Definitely. I always saying life is too short not to go after what you want and not to try new things. So totally agree with that. Well, thank you so much for coming on and for joining us. Again, super early your end. I really enjoyed our conversation. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Travel Transformation Podcast with me, Jessica Grace Coleman. If you enjoyed this episode, I would really appreciate it if you could please subscribe, rate and review, and spread the word, because it's my mission to help as many people as possible to flip the script on their lives and transform through travel. And remember, life is short, so let's make sure it's nothing short of amazing. Until next time, I'll catch you on the flip side.